The massive chamber floated in the silence of space, a monument to galactic power that had stood for 10,000 years. Inside, representatives from 200 different species filled the curved rows of seats that spiraled up toward the domed ceiling. The air recyclers hummed quietly, mixing atmospheres that kept everyone alive in their respective zones. Some breathed oxygen, others methane, and a few existed in sections flooded with liquid ammonia. But they all shared one thing in common today. They were watching the human at the central podium with barely concealed amusement. Ambassador Gu stood under the spotlight, his dark suit perfectly pressed, his expression calm despite the whispers echoing through the translation systems. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years. 3 long years of meetings, negotiations, and endless protocols. 3 years of being treated like a child asking adults for permission to sit at their table. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Jiwoo began, his voice steady and clear. I stand before you today to present humanity's final petition for full membership status. Over the past 3 years, we have contributed to galactic society in numerous ways. Our medical researchers have developed treatments for 17 previously incurable diseases. Our agricultural specialists have helped 3 frontier worlds overcome famine. Our artists and musicians have enriched the cultural exchanges on 40 different planets. He paused, looking around the chamber. Some representatives were listening. Most were checking their data pads or chatting quietly with their neighbors. Counselor Vrenthus, the ancient Arkelian who served as speaker, was examining his claws with evident boredom. We have met every requirement set before us, Giwu continued. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have respected all treaties and customs. We have proven ourselves as worthy partners in the galactic community. Therefore, on behalf of the 5 billion humans across 12 colony worlds, I formally request full council membership and unrestricted trade rights. He stepped back from the podium and waited. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed. It was a wet, bubbling sound from one of the Aquarian delegates. Another joined in, a high-pitched chittering from an insectoid representative. Within seconds, the laughter spread through the chamber like a wave. Gigwu stood perfectly still, his face showing nothing. Behind him, in the human delegation section, Admiral Hyenwoo's jaw tightened. Chief Scientist Deho stared at his hands, his face burning with humiliation. But Jiwoo simply waited for the laughter to die down. Counselor Vrenthos finally raised one clawed hand, and the chamber quieted. The ancient alien's face was difficult to read, but his voice dripped with condescension. Ambassador Jiwoo, the Council, appreciates humanity's enthusiasm. Your species shows admirable dedication, considering your limited capabilities. More chuckling rippled through the crowd. Vrenthos continued, however. Full membership requires a level of technological and cultural sophistication that humanity has not yet achieved. Your faster-than-light drives are primitive. Your ships are slow and inefficient. Your weapons are crude. Your lifespan is tragically short. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when you have matured as a species, we can revisit this discussion. High Chancellor Kermix rose from his seat in the upper tier. The Thulian was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with crystalline skin that refracted the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. His empire controlled 15% of known space, and everyone knew it. With respect, Speaker Vrenthus, I believe you are being too generous, Kermix said, his voice booming through the chamber. Humanity is not simply unready for membership. They are fundamentally unsuited for it. They are a young race, barely off their homeworld, playing at civilization. They build their little colonies and call it an empire. They invent a few medicines and think themselves scientists. They are children, and children do not sit at the table with adults. The chamber erupted in applause and laughter. Kermix smiled, showing teeth like diamonds. However, the Council is not without mercy. I propose we offer humanity a new status. Protectorate species. We will grant them limited trade rights in exchange for reasonable compensation. Vrenthos nodded approvingly. An excellent suggestion, High Chancellor. Let us hear the terms. A holographic display appeared above the center of the chamber, listing the conditions in glowing text. Gi Wu read them carefully, his expression never changing. Humanity would be allowed to trade with Council species, but 40% of all profits would go to the Council as a development tax. All human technology would be shared freely with the Council. But Council technology would only be licensed to humanity at premium rates. Human ships would need permits for every faster-than-light jump, with fees paid to the Council for each one. The human military would be limited to 50 vessels total, for defensive purposes only. All human colony worlds would be subject to Council inspections at any time for any reason. These terms are generous beyond measure, Kermix declared. They offer humanity protection, guidance, and access to galactic civilization. All we ask in return is appropriate tribute and acknowledgement of your place in the natural order. Vrenthus looked down at Jiwu. Ambassador, does humanity accept these terms? A simple yes or no will suffice. The chamber fell silent again. Every eye turned to the human at the podium. Jiwu looked at the terms displayed above him. He looked at the council members watching him with expressions ranging from amusement to contempt. He looked at Hunhua and Deho, who both nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility. They had prepared for it. Honored Speaker Jiu said quietly, "We respectfully decline." For a moment, nobody reacted. The words seemed too absurd to process. Then Vrenthos leaned forward. "I am sorry, Ambassador. Perhaps the translation was unclear. Do you accept the Protectorate status or not?" "We decline, Counselor. We do not accept your terms." The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some laughed even harder than before. Others looked confused or angry. Kermix's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You decline? Do you understand what you are refusing? Without council approval, you have no legal standing in galactic space, no trade rights, no territorial claims, no protection under council law. You will be isolated, vulnerable, and forgotten." Kiwu began gathering his datapads and documents. "We understand perfectly, High Chancellor. That is why, effective immediately, humanity is withdrawing its petition for council membership. We are closing all human embassies in council space. We are terminating all existing trade agreements. We are ending all cultural exchange programs. We will no longer seek your approval or your protection." He turned to face Vrenthos directly. "We came here 3 years ago hoping to find partners and friends. Instead, we found arrogance and disrespect. You laugh at our ships because they are slower than yours. You mock our weapons because they are simpler than yours. You dismiss our achievements because we are young. But you have taught us something valuable today. You have taught us that we do not need you." Jiwu picked up his case and walked toward the exit. Hunwu and Deho fell in behind him, along with the rest of the human delegation. The chamber was in absolute chaos now, the counselors shouting questions and demands. Vrenthos' voice boomed over the speakers. "Ambassador Jiwu, if you walk out of this chamber, humanity will stand alone against a hostile galaxy. You will have no allies, no support, no future." Giwu paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. "Then we will build our own future, Counselor. We wish you well." Go. The human delegation walked out in complete silence while behind them. The Galactic Council erupted into arguments, laughter, and confusion. Kermix was declaring that humanity would come crawling back within a year. Vrenthos was trying to restore order. Some delegates were genuinely concerned, but most simply returned to their previous business. Already forgetting about the primitive species that had just walked away, none of them noticed the small smile on Jiwu's face as the doors closed behind him. None of them understood that humanity had just done something the Council had never experienced in 10,000 years of existence. They had said no. 6 months had passed since the day humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. In that time, the galaxy had continued turning. Trade routes had continued flowing, and the Council had continued governing as it always had. But something was different. Something was missing. Merchant Captain Torvax of the Brenthian Trade Consortium was the first to notice. He had built his fortune importing human entertainment media. Those strange stories and moving pictures that other species found oddly compelling? Humans had a gift for narrative that few other races possessed. But when he tried to place his usual order, his message bounced back with an automated response. Humanity is currently pursuing independent development. Thank you for your interest. Torvax tried again. Same response. He tried contacting his human business partners directly. Their communication channels were disconnected. He searched for human trade vessels in the shipping lanes. There were none. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Kelvorian hospital administrator who relied on human surgical techniques found her supply chain cut off. The Praven agricultural minister who had contracted dehuman farming specialists to save his planet's crops received cancellation notices. The Yithian art collector who treasured human paintings discovered that no more were available at any price. They will be back, High Chancellor Kermix declared at the council session. They need us far more than we need them. A few luxury goods and clever medicines are hardly essential. Let them sulk in their corner of space. When their economy collapses, they will return begging for our generosity. Most of the council agreed. Humanity was a minor inconvenience, nothing more. They had bigger concerns to deal with. Border disputes, trade negotiations, the usual politics of a galactic civilization. But Councillor Rexian was not convinced. The Drethian representative had been one of the two abstentions during the vote on humanity's protectorate status. He had felt uncomfortable with the mocking tone, the casual dismissal of an entire species. Now he felt something else, curiosity. He began collecting reports. At first there was little to find. Human ships had indeed vanished from council space. Their embassies stood empty, their diplomats gone home. But then small details started appearing in intelligence reports from the frontier regions. A mining survey team reported unusual energy signatures in a previously uninhabited star system near human territory. When they investigated, they were politely but firmly told to leave by a human patrol ship. The survey team complied but noted something strange. The human ship had jumped too faster than light speed instantly, with no warm-up time. Human drive should not be able to do that. A Thulian patrol encountered a human cargo vessel at the edge of neutral space. The patrol commander, still following old protocols, demanded the human ship stop for inspection. The captain, a woman named Yuna, responded calmly. We are no longer subject to council regulations. We are in neutral space. Please move aside. The Thulian commander, offended by the refusal, powered up his weapons. You will submit to inspection or be fired upon. Yuna's voice remained polite but firm. We will not. Good day, Commander. The human ship vanished. Not slowly, not with a typical flash and distortion of a faster-than-light jump. It simply disappeared from sensors in an instant, leaving the Thulian patrol staring at empty space. The commander filed a complaint with the council, but also filed a classified report with his military superiors. Human technology had changed. Dramatically, more reports came in. Human colony ships were seen heading toward unclaimed systems at unprecedented speeds. Massive construction projects were detected in the outer regions. Energy readings suggested industrial operations on a scale that seemed impossible for a species with humanity's supposed limitations. Rexian brought these reports to the council's attention. I believe we should investigate what humanity is doing. These changes in their capabilities are significant. Vrenthas waved a dismissive claw. Councillor Rexian, you worry too much. So the humans have made some minor improvements to their technology. Good for them. It changes nothing. They remain a isolated, insignificant species. But the speed improvements alone suggest a breakthrough in faster-than-light mechanics. If they have developed something new, it could affect the balance of enough. Kermix stood, his crystalline form gleaming. The council has more important matters to discuss than the hurt feelings of primitive humans. They were offered a generous arrangement and refused it out of pride. Let them learn the consequences of that choice. The discussion ended there. Most councillors agreed with Kermix. A few, like Rexian, remained concerned, but were outvoted. The galaxy moved on, but the reports kept coming. 3 minor species that bordered human territory sent messages to the council. They had been contacted by human diplomats offering trade agreements, direct agreements, bypassing the council entirely. The terms were generous: fair exchange of goods and technology, no tribute required, no restrictions imposed. Next, two of the species had accepted. In the commercial districts of frontier stations, human goods began appearing again. Not through official channels, but through direct trade with independent merchants. The goods were different now. Better quality, more sophisticated. Medical scanner of human design outperformed council equivalents at half the price. A power cell of human manufacture lasted twice as long as standard models. Where are they getting this? A Praven merchant asked a human trader. The trader, a young man named Quan, just smiled. We have been busy. For months after the walkout, a council science vessel, conducting a deep space survey, made a startling discovery. A human research station in a system that had been empty just a year ago. The station was massive, bigger than anything humanity should be able to construct. When the science vessel approached to make contact, they received a polite message. This is Dr. Yunji of Human Research Station Kepler. You're welcome to pass through this system, but please maintain a distance of at least 1 million kilometers from our facility. Thank you. The council vessel's captain, curious, asked what they were researching. Dr. Yunji's response was friendly but vague. Advanced propulsion systems and energy generation. Nothing that would interest the council, I am sure. Safe travels. The science vessel left, but not before conducting long-range scans. The energy output from the human station was enormous, far beyond what current human technology should be capable of producing. The captain filed a detailed report. It was marked as low priority and filed away. Admiral Haiyan Wu stood on the bridge of the human warship Inchin,
reviewing
deployment schedules. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of human fleet elements across a dozen star systems. Each icon represented a ship that did not exist 6 months ago. The last of the Sejong-class cruisers has completed trials, his tactical officer reported. All 30 vessels are now operational. Hyun-woo nodded. 30 cruisers, plus 50 destroyers, plus 120 frigates, plus support vessels, cargo haulers, and the new exploration ships. The human fleet had grown from 50 vessels to over 200 in 6 months, and they were just getting started. Any contact with council forces? He asked. None, sir. They are staying well clear of our territory. A few scout ships have tried to probe our borders, but they leave when we ask them to. Good, keep it that way. We are not looking for a fight. No, sir. Just preparing for one if it comes. Hyun-woo smiled slightly. Exactly. Back in the council chambers, Rexion reviewed intelligence reports in his private office. The picture they painted was clear to anyone willing to see it. Humanity had not collapsed. They had not come crawling back. They had not even slowed down. They had exploded. Every metric showed the same trend. Expansion, construction, innovation, growth. Human territory had tripled. Their industrial output had increased by a factor of 10. Their technological capabilities were advancing at a rate that seemed impossible. Rexion understood what had happened. For 3 years, humanity's best and brightest had worked to meet arbitrary council standards, jumping through hoops designed to keep them subordinate. When they walked away from that system, when they stopped trying to please the council and started working for themselves, their true potential had been unleashed. He composed a message to Vrenthus, marked urgent. We need to discuss the human situation. This is not going as we assumed. The reply came back hours later. Your concerns are noted. The council will address the matter when appropriate. Looked out his window at the stars and wondered how long it would be before appropriate became too late. In the human colonies, in the shipyards, in the research stations, people worked with an energy and purpose they had not felt in years. They were building something. Not for the council's approval, not to meet someone else's standards. For themselves, for their future, the simple satisfaction of showing the galaxy what humans could do when nobody was laughing at them. The silence from humanity was not emptiness. It was the sound of a species getting ready to change everything, Captain. Thalcorus had been exploring unknown space for 40 years. He had seen nebulas that glowed with colors that had no names. He discovered 17 new species and charted 300 star systems. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. Then he found the human Megs. His fleet had been conducting a routine survey of unclaimed systems near the edge of Council space when the sensors detected something impossible. Energy readings on a massive scale coming from a system that was supposed to be empty. Thalcorus ordered his ships to investigate, expecting perhaps a natural phenomenon or maybe an ancient alien ruin. What they found was neither. The star at the center of the system was surrounded by a web of orbital platforms. Hundreds of them, each one the size of a small city, caught the star's light with massive solar collectors and turned it into power. The construction was incomplete, but even half-finished, it was breathtaking. By the ancestors, his tactical officer whispered, "That is a partial Dyson swarm." Alcorus stared at the displays. A Dyson swarm was theoretical, something only the most advanced civilizations might attempt. It required engineering on a scale that most species never achieved. And humans had supposedly been primitive just a year ago. "Scan everything," he ordered. "I want to know exactly what we are looking at." Before his ships could get close enough for detailed scans, they received a transmission. A human face appeared on the screen, a man who looked to be in his 30s with calm, professional demeanor. "This is Station Commander Inwu of Human Development Station Jungju. You have entered human sovereign territory. Please state your purpose." Thalcorus composed himself quickly. "This is Captain Thalcorus of the Council Exploration Fleet. We are conducting a routine survey. We were not aware this system was claimed." "It was not claimed until 8 months ago," Inwu replied. "We filed the appropriate territorial notices with the Frontier Registry. You may pass through this system, but we ask that you maintain a distance of at least 5 million kilometers from our installations." 5 million kilometers. That was too far for detailed scans. Thalcorus felt his pride bristle. He had spent his entire career exploring space, and now a human was telling him where he could and could not go. "Station Commander, I am acting under Council authority. We have the right to inspect any installations in this region to ensure they pose no threat to galactic security." Inwu's expression did not change. "Captain, humanity is not part of the Council. We are not subject to Council authority. This is our territory, and we are asking you politely to keep your distance." Thalcorus made a decision that he would later regret. He had dealt with countless species over the years, and most of them backed down when confronted with Council power. Humans were supposed to be weak, their technology inferior. He would call this commander's bluff. "We're proceeding with our survey," Thalcorus announced. "If you wish to file a protest, you may do so through proper diplomatic channels." He ordered his fleet to advance. They had barely moved forward when his tactical officer gasped, "Captain, we are being targeted." Multiple weapon locks. Hundreds of them. The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. Every platform in the Dyson swarm had weapons, and every single one was now aimed at his fleet. Not charging, not firing, just locked on with perfect precision. "They have enough firepower to destroy us 50 times over," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "Their targeting systems are more accurate than anything in our database." "Captain, this is not inferior technology." Inwu's voice came over the communication channel again, still calm and professional. "Captain Thalcorus, you are free to continue your advance. However, I should inform you that our defensive systems are fully automated. If you cross the 5 million kilometer threshold, they will interpret it as a hostile act and respond accordingly. I would prefer not to have to explain to my superiors why I allowed a Council fleet to be destroyed in our territory." Thalcorus looked at the tactical display, at the hundreds of weapon locks, at the massive orbital platforms that his sensors were barely able to analyze. He thought about his crew, his ships, his 40 years of exploration. "Fleet, reverse course," he ordered quietly. "Maintain current distance from human installations." He saw Inwu nod on the screen. "A wise decision, Captain. You are welcome to observe from your current position. If you require any data about our operations here for your survey, I would be happy to provide basic information." The offer was polite, even friendly. But it was also a reminder. The humans would give information if and when they chose to. Not because they were forced to. Thalcorus asked for basic system data, received it promptly, and then ordered his fleet to leave the system. As soon as they were clear, he opened a priority channel to Council headquarters. "This is Captain Thalcorus. I need to speak with the Council immediately. We have a situation." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos from the beginning. Representatives shouted over each other in a dozen languages. Translation systems struggled to keep up. Vrenthas pounded his speaker's gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. "Silence. We will have order." The ancient Arkelian's voice finally cut through the noise. "Captain Thalcorus will present his report." Thalcorus stood at the central podium, where Jiwoo had stood a year ago. He displayed the data from his encounter, and the chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed what they were seeing. "A partial Dyson swarm," he concluded. "Construction appears to be approximately 30% complete. Based on the energy output, when finished, it will power an industrial complex capable of supporting billions of inhabitants." Kermix rose from his seat. "This must be a mistake. Humans do not have the capability for such construction. Perhaps they purchased it from another species." "No, High Chancellor," Thalcorus replied. "The construction techniques are unique. The materials are locally sourced and refined. This is human engineering." More shouting erupted. Delegates demanded answers. How could this be possible? Where had humans gotten this technology? Why had nobody noticed? Rexian stood and waited for the noise to die down. "If I may, I have been tracking human activities for the past year. Captain Thalcorus's discovery is not isolated. We have confirmed reports of human installations in 47 star systems. Multiple research stations, industrial complexes, and colony worlds. Their fleet has grown from 50 vessels to an estimated 2,000. 2,000? Someone in the chamber laughed nervously. "That cannot be correct. The Protectorate terms limited them to 50 vessels maximum." "They refused the Protectorate terms," Rexian reminded everyone. "They are not bound by those limits." Renthus leaned forward. "Even so, constructing 2,000 ships in 1 year is impossible. It took the Thulian Empire a century to build a fleet that size." "The Thulian Empire built slowly because we had no need to hurry," Kermix said. "But I agree, this number seems exaggerated." Cation pulled up more data. "These are tracking reports from multiple sources. The numbers are conservative, if anything. And it is not just quantity. Quality has improved as well. Human faster-than-light drives are now faster than Council standard models. Their power systems are more efficient. Their defensive technology is advanced enough to make Captain Thalcorus retreat from a confrontation." It caused another eruption of shouting. The idea that a Council fleet had backed down from humans was unthinkable. Kermix's voice boomed across the chamber. "This is unacceptable. If humanity has somehow acquired advanced technology, we must determine the source and ensure it does not upset the galactic balance of power. I move that we send a diplomatic mission to Earth immediately to demand an explanation." The motion passed quickly. Nobody wanted to admit they were worried, but the concern was clear in every delegate's voice. Something had changed, and nobody understood how or why. 3 days later, Council diplomatic vessel entered Earth's solar system. Councillor Rexian stood on the bridge as they approached the human homeworld, and he had to force himself not to react visibly to what he saw. Earth was transformed. Massive orbital rings circled the planet at multiple altitudes. Space elevators stretched from the surface to orbital platforms. Shipyards floated in formation around the moon. Traffic control directed hundreds of vessels in carefully organized patterns. "This is Earth Space Control," a calm voice said over the communication channel. "Please state your designation and purpose." "This is the Council Diplomatic Vessel Unity," Rikusun replied. "We request permission to land and speak with your government." Permission granted. "Please follow the designated flight path to Landing Zone Geneva. Welcome to Earth." The landing zone was located in what had once been a small city on Earth's surface. Now it was a sprawling complex of government buildings, research centers, and diplomatic facilities. As Rexian and his team disembarked, they were met by Ambassador Jiwoo, who looked exactly as he had a year ago when he walked out of the council chambers. Counselor Rexion Giwu greeted him with a slight bow. "Welcome. Please, come with me." They were led through corridors filled with people of different species, not just humans, but representatives from dozens of races, many of whom recognized as frontier species that had limited contact with the Council. Everyone moved with purpose and energy, and nobody seemed subordinate to anyone else. The meeting took place in a simple conference room. No grand chambers, no theatrical displays of power, just a table, chairs, and refreshments. Giwu was joined by Admiral Hyunwoo and Chief Scientist Daeho. Rexion decided to be direct. "Ambassador Giwu, the Council is concerned about your recent expansion and technological development. We would like to understand how you achieved such rapid advancement." Giwu smiled slightly. "We stopped wasting time trying to please you." The simple honesty of the statement caught Rexion off guard. Hyunwoo continued the explanation. "For 3 years, our best scientists and engineers worked to meet Council standards. Standards that were arbitrary and designed to keep us dependent on Council technology. We modified our ships to use Council navigation protocols even though they were slower than our own designs. We limited our research to areas the Council approved of. We held ourselves back because we thought we had to prove ourselves worthy." Daeho picked up the explanation. "When we walked away, when we stopped trying to meet your approval, everything changed. We went back to our own methods, our own innovations. Humans are good at solving problems with limited resources. We have had to be. You have had abundance for so long that you forgot how to truly innovate. Our faster-than-light drive is based on a completely different principle than yours," he continued. "We developed it because we could not afford the energy costs of Council-style drives. Our manufacturing systems are automated to a degree you never needed because we have a smaller population. Our defensive technology came from centuries of developing cybersecurity against our own hackers. Everything you see, everything we have built, came from us looking at problems our own way instead of your way." Giwu leaned forward. "Counselor Rexion, humanity does not wish to be enemies with the Council. We will trade with any species that approaches us with respect. We will share knowledge with those who share in return. But we will never again submit to your authority. We will never again accept being treated as children who need guidance from their betters." Rexion sat in silence for a long moment, absorbing what he had been told. Finally, he spoke. "The Council will not accept this easily." "We know," Giwu replied, "but that is not our problem anymore." High Chancellor Kermix stared at the economic reports with barely controlled fury. 12 species had withdrawn from the Thulian Trade Consortium in the past month. 12. They all gave the same reason. They had found better terms elsewhere. With humanity, the reports detailed the damage. Human medical equipment was replacing Council technology in hospitals across the frontier. Human transportation ships were undercutting Council shipping rates by 30% while delivering goods faster. Human consumer products were flooding markets from luxury items to basic necessities, all of it higher quality, lower cost, and more readily available than Council equivalents. "This is economic warfare," Kermix declared at the Emergency Council session. "Humanity is deliberately undermining our markets." Rexion, who had returned from Earth with his disturbing report, shook his head. "High Chancellor, they are simply offering better products at better prices. That is called competition, not warfare." "It is the same thing." Kermix's crystalline skin flashed with angry colors. "For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained order through economic and technological superiority. If any species can simply walk away and build their own systems, the entire structure collapses." Frenthus rapped his gavel. "Perhaps the High Chancellor is right that we need to take action. The question is, what action?" Several delegates spoke up. "Economic sanctions against species trading with humanity. That would only push more species away from the Council. Diplomatic pressure." Humanity had already made clear they did not care about Council approval. Finally, Kermix stood again. "There is only one language that truly matters in galactic affairs: power. I propose we assemble a coalition fleet, and conduct a demonstration of force. We will travel to one of the human colonies and demand tribute as compensation for their violations of galactic norms. When they see our strength, they will understand their place." "What violations?" Rikshan asked. "They rejected our authority. They are not bound by our rules. They are bound by the natural order of things," Kermix replied coldly. "The strong rule, the weak submit. Humanity needs to be reminded which they are." The vote was close, but it passed. 40 species committed ships to the coalition fleet. Not everyone agreed with the action, but enough feared the economic disruption to support a show of force. Admiral Henwu received the intelligence reports from human scouts operating near Council space. A fleet was gathering. 500 warships from 6 different species, including Thulian dreadnoughts. Their projected course led to New Sol, one of humanity's largest colony worlds. He immediately contacted Earth and requested an emergency meeting with President Jihoon and the Security Council. "They are coming to make an example of us," Hyunwoo said, displaying the fleet composition. 500 ships is more than enough to overwhelm a single colony's defenses. If we evacuate New Sol, we look weak. If we defend it with insufficient force, we lose people and ships. President Jihoon studied the data carefully. She was young for a president, only 45, but she had been elected specifically because of her steady leadership during the transition away from council influence. "How many ships can we deploy to New Sol?" she asked. 400 combat vessels, Hyunwoo replied. "With defensive platforms and support craft, we can match their numbers. But their ships are larger, more heavily armed. In a direct fight, we would take heavy casualties." "Then we will not fight directly," said Director Minho, who oversaw human intelligence operations. "We have advantages they do not expect. We use them." The Security Council debated for 2 hours. Some argued for evacuation. Others wanted to fight. Finally, President Jihoon made her decision. "We defend New Sol, but we follow the rules we set for ourselves. We do not fire first. We do not kill if we can avoid it. We show them that strength is not just about weapons, but about restraint and capability together." She turned to Hyunwoo. "Deploy the defense fleet. Protect our people. But remember, every person on those council ships is someone's family member. We are not the council. We do not treat life as expendable." Hyunwoo saluted. "Understood, Madam President? We will make you proud." Kermix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystalline Dominion, and watched as his fleet exited faster than light travel at New Sol. The colony world hung in space before them, a blue and green sphere orbited by industrial stations and agricultural platforms. He expected to see a handful of human ships fleeing in panic. Instead, he saw 400 human warships in defensive formation, with the colony protected behind layered shield networks that his sensors struggled to analyze. "Impressive," he admitted. "They managed to gather a decent force. But numbers mean nothing without power to back them up." A transmission came through. Admiral Hyenwa's face appeared on the screen, calm and professional. "Hi, Chancellor Kermex. You are in human sovereign space. Power down your weapons and state your business, or leave immediately." Kermix laughed. "Admiral, you are in no position to make demands. We have come to collect tribute for humanity's violations of galactic order. You will pay a fine of 1 trillion credits, to transfer all military technology to council custody, and submit to permanent monitoring. These terms are non-negotiable." "Then we have nothing to discuss," Hyunwoo replied. "Last warning. Leave now." Kermix smiled, showing his diamond teeth. "Make me." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, target the human fleet. Prepare to fire on my command." His tactical officer hesitated. "Hi, Chancellor. Starting a shooting war with... Did I ask for your opinion?" "Fire." The council fleet opened fire with everything they had. Particle beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes. Enough firepower to level a continent streaked toward the human formation and hit nothing. The human ships vanished from sensors the instant before weapons impact. The Council's devastating barrage flew through empty space and dissipated harmlessly. Where did they go? Kermix demanded. Unknown, sir. They were just there and now they are gone. Some kind of stealth technology, but more advanced than anything we have seen. Then the Council fleet systems started failing. Not catastrophically, but precisely. Weapons targeting systems went offline. Shield generators stuttered and died. Propulsion controls became unresponsive. Across 500 ships, critical systems failed one after another. We are being hacked, his cybersecurity officer reported in a panicked voice. Intrusion software is in our networks, and I cannot stop it. It is like nothing I have ever seen. It is adapting faster than we can counter it. Kermix stared in disbelief as his mighty fleet became a collection of helpless metal hulks drifting in space. Then Hyan-Wu's voice came over the communication channel again. Hi, Chancellor. We have disabled your fleet's offensive and defensive capabilities. Your life support systems are untouched. Your crew is safe. You have demonstrated your power. Now let me demonstrate ours. The human ships reappeared, surrounding the Council fleet in a perfect sphere formation. They had been there the entire time, invisible and untouchable. We could destroy every ship in your fleet right now, Hyun-Woo continued. Your shields are down. Your weapons are offline. You are completely vulnerable. But we will not do that. Because unlike you, we do not measure strength by how much we can destroy. He paused, letting that sink in. In 2 hours, our cyber warfare systems will release their hold on your networks. You will regain full control of your ships. Then you will leave our territory and never return. If you attack human worlds again, we will not be so merciful. We will disable your ships, tow them to the nearest uninhabited system, and leave you to call for rescue. Do you understand? Kermix wanted to rage, to threaten, to do anything but accept this humiliation. But he was a military commander, and he understood when he had been beaten. Completely and utterly beaten. I understand, he said quietly. Good. Safe travels, High Chancellor. The human fleet held position while the Council ships slowly drifted, helpless and humiliated. Across 500 vessels, crews sat in stunned silence, realizing they had been at humanity's mercy and had been spared. Exactly 2 hours later, systems began coming back online. Kermix immediately ordered a retreat. The fleet limped away from New Seoul. Their grand demonstration of force turned into a monument to their failure, back on Earth. President Ji-hoon watched the Council fleet leave on the strategic display. She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Report casualties, she ordered. 0, Madam President. On both sides. Their weapons never found targets, and we never fired a shot. She nodded slowly. Make sure that information gets out. I want everyone to know that we won this confrontation without killing anyone. That is the difference between us and them. Within days, news of the New Seoul incident spread across the galaxy. The story varied depending on who was telling it, but the core facts remained the same. A Council fleet of 500 ships had attacked a human colony. The human defenders had disabled the entire fleet without firing a lethal shot, and had let them go unharmed. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. 17 species formally withdrew from Council authority within the week. They issued statements praising humanity's restraint and expressing interest in establishing independent relations. More followed every day in the Council chambers. Kermix faced calls for his resignation. He had promised a demonstration of strength and delivered a demonstration of weakness. Rentha struggled to maintain order as the Council fractured, with delegates arguing over whether to seek peace with humanity or double down on confrontation. Rexian watched the chaos and felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Hope, not for the Council, which was clearly dying, but for what might come after, for a galaxy where strength was measured by wisdom and restraint, instead of brutality and dominance, for a galaxy that humanity had shown was possible. On the bridge of the human warship Incheon, Admiral Hyun-Woo looked at the tactical display showing Council ships retreating in disarray. His weapons officer turned to him. We could have destroyed them. Why did we let them go? Hyun-Woo considered the question carefully before answering. Because we are not trying to prove we are stronger than them. We are trying to prove we are better than them. There is a difference." The weapons officer nodded slowly, understanding. The human fleet held position around New Sol for another day, then dispersed to their regular patrols. The battle was over. The war for the galaxy's future had just begun. 3 years had passed since. Ambassador Jiwoo walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. 3 years since humanity had been laughed at and dismissed. 3 years since everything changed. Counselor Ventha stood in the council chamber and looked at the empty seats. Once 200 species had filled the space. Now barely 60 remained, and most of those were just maintaining token presence while they decided whether to leave entirely. The great hall that had echoed with the voices of galactic civilization for 10,000 years now felt hollow and dead. "We call this session to order," Vrenthus said, his ancient voice tired. "We are here to discuss a proposal from Counselor Rexion regarding humanity." Rexion stood and moved to the central podium. He looked out at the sparse audience and felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for what was ending, relief for what might begin. "Honored members, we have reached a point where we must acknowledge reality. The Council is dying. Not because of conquest or catastrophe, but because we have become irrelevant. 140 species have left our authority in the past 3 years. They have not been invaded or coerced. They have simply chosen a different path." He activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic civilization. A large portion of the map was now colored in blue, representing the Free Worlds Alliance. Over 120 species, including humanity, had joined this loose confederation. They had no central authority, no rigid hierarchy, just a framework for cooperation and mutual defense. "The Alliance offers what we failed to provide," Rikshan continued. "Respect, equality, the freedom to develop according to each species' own values, rather than conforming to arbitrary standards." And it works. Alliance species are thriving economically and culturally. High Chancellor Kermix, who had somehow retained his position despite the disaster at New Sol, stood angrily. "So you propose we surrender? That we dissolve the oldest institution in galactic history because some upstart humans convinced a few frontier species to follow them?" "I propose we acknowledge that we were wrong," Rexion said quietly. "We treated younger species as children to be managed rather than equals to be respected. We used our power to maintain control rather than to help others grow. We laughed at humanity when they asked for a seat at our table, and they responded by building a better table. This is ridiculous," Kermix shouted. "The Council represents order, stability, civilization itself." "The Council represents stagnation," Rexon replied. "When was the last time a Council species made a significant technological breakthrough? When did we last produce art that moved the soul or philosophy that challenged the mind? We have been coasting on the achievements of our ancestors for millennia. Humanity reminded us that civilization requires constant growth and renewal." He turned to address the full chamber. "I propose that we officially extend an apology to humanity. That we request the opportunity to establish a new relationship based on mutual respect. And that we consider whether the Council itself should be dissolved so that its member species can join the Alliance as equals." The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates supported the proposal. Others called it treason. Kermix demanded Rexion's removal from the Council. Renthus tried to restore order, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Far from the dying Council, Earth had become a hub of galactic activity. Ships from dozens of species came and went constantly. The orbital stations that had been under construction 3 years ago were now complete and bustling with life. Humans worked alongside Drethians, Kelvorians, Praven, and countless other species. Ambassador Jiwoo, who had returned to diplomatic service after a year of rest, sat in his office reviewing the day's schedule. Meetings with 3 new species interested in joining the Alliance, a cultural exchange program to organize, a trade dispute to mediate between 2 member species. The work was endless, but satisfying. His assistant, a young woman named Cien, entered with news. "Ambassador, we have received a formal communication from the Galactic Council. They are requesting a meeting to discuss establishing official diplomatic relations." Iku read the message carefully. It was polite, even humble. Very different from the tone the Council had used 3 years ago. Schedule a meeting for next week. Make sure the Alliance mediators are present. This is not just about humanity anymore. President Ji-hoon called for a global referendum on the question of Council membership. The debate raged across Earth and the human colonies. Some argued that accepting Council membership would give humanity a voice in reforming the old institution. Others insisted that the Council was beyond saving, and humanity should focus entirely on the Alliance. Gi-woo was asked to give a statement that would be broadcast to every human settlement. He stood before the cameras and spoke from the heart. 3 years ago, I stood before the Galactic Council and asked them to treat us as equals. They laughed. They offered us subordination disguised as protection. We walked away because we knew we deserved better. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Since then, we have built something remarkable. Not alone, but together with anyone willing to treat us with respect. The Free Worlds Alliance is not perfect. We argue, we disagree, we make mistakes, but we do it as equals, as partners, as friends. The Council now offers us what we originally asked for: full membership, no conditions, complete respect. But the question is no longer whether they will accept us. The question is whether we need them at all. I believe we do not. The Council represents a way of thinking that belongs to the past. Hierarchy, control. The idea that some species are inherently superior to others. The Alliance represents something new: cooperation, innovation. The idea that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker.
How?
But this choice is not mine to make. It belongs to all of us. Vote your conscience. Vote your hopes. Vote for the future you want to build. The results came in over the next week. 78% of humans voted to decline Council membership. The message was clear. Humanity had moved on. The formal response to the Council was diplomatic but firm. Humanity would not join the Council. However, if the Council chose to dissolve and its member species wished to join the Alliance as equals, they would be welcomed. No special privileges, no superior status. Just the same respect offered to every member. Over the next year, the remaining Council species made their choices. Some, like Kermic's Esthulian Empire, refused and withdrew into isolation, bitter about their lost power. Others joined the Alliance and discovered that equality was not a loss, but a liberation. Vrenthus, in his final act as Council Speaker, officially dissolved the Galactic Council. The ancient Archelians stood alone in the empty chamber and deactivated the central systems that had run for 10,000 years. I was wrong, he said to the darkness. We were all wrong. We thought age meant wisdom, but it only meant we had more time to grow arrogant. He left the chamber and traveled to Earth, where he personally requested permission to join the Alliance. Not as a Council representative, but as a private citizen who wanted to learn humility. 5 years after the walkout, the galaxy looked completely different. The Free Worlds Alliance included 180 species. Scientific collaboration between member species had produced breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and faster-than-light travel. Arts and culture flowed freely between worlds. Conflicts still occurred, but they were resolved through mediation and arbitration rather than force. Humanity was one voice among many, not leaders, not followers, but partners. Human innovation had sparked the transformation, but the Alliance belonged to everyone equally. Gu, now in his 60s and considering retirement, stood in a garden on Earth with his friend Rexion. They watched ships from dozens of species arrive and depart from the orbital stations above. You ever regret walking away that day? Rexon asked. Gi-woo smiled, the same slight smile he had worn when leaving the Council chambers 5 years ago. Not for even a moment. They laughed at us because they thought we needed them. But we never needed their approval. We just needed them to get out of our way. Rexion nodded thoughtfully. You taught the galaxy something we had forgotten. That respect cannot be demanded, only earned. And when you are denied respect, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. And build something better, Ji-woo added. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two friends from different species watching the new dawn of galactic civilization. Above them, human ships worked alongside vessels from 100 other worlds. Engineers collaborated on station repairs. Scientists shared data from distant surveys. Traders exchanged goods and stories. A young Thulian student approached them hesitantly. She was part of the first generation raised in the Alliance rather than the old Empire. "Excuse me, Ambassador Jiwoo. I am writing a paper about the Council's dissolution. Can I ask you a question?" "Of course," Jiwoo replied kindly. Why did humanity succeed when so many other species had tried to reform the Council and failed? Jiwoo considered the question carefully. "I think it is because we did not try to reform them. We tried to replace them. The Council wanted species to fit into their system. We built a new system that let each species be themselves. The Council saw diversity as something to manage. We saw it as something to celebrate." Student nodded, recording his words. "Thank you, Ambassador. One more question. If you could go back and do anything differently, what would it be?" Jiwoo looked at Rexian and smiled. "I would have walked out sooner." The student thanked them and left. Rexian chuckled. "You know that answer will become famous. Every young species will quote it when they challenge the status quo," Good Jiwoo said. "Every generation needs to learn that lesson. Power respects strength, but it fears dignity. When we walked out in silence, we showed more strength than all their weapons and fleets combined." Above them, a human exploration vessel prepared to depart for unknown space. It carried a crew of 15 people from 8 different species. On its hull was painted a simple motto that had become the Alliance's unofficial slogan: "Different voices, one song." It was not the perfect metaphor, Jiwoo thought. Sometimes the voices clashed. Sometimes they created discord, but that was the point. A single voice singing alone was just a voice. Many voices together, even when they disagreed, created something richer and more beautiful. The Council had demanded harmony through conformity. The Alliance created symphony through diversity, and it had all started with a simple word, spoken in quiet dignity: no. Jiwoo looked out at the stars and thought about all the species out there who had not yet been contacted, who did not yet know that they had choices, who might one day stand before some other council and be told they were not good enough. He hoped they would. Remember humanity's lesson, that walking away with your head held high was not defeat. It was the first step toward building something better. The galaxy was vast, and there was still so much work to do. But for the first time in 10,000 years, it felt like the work was worth doing. Not to maintain power or control, but to explore possibilities. Not to enforce order, but to encourage growth. The Council had laughed when humanity walked away in silence. Now the galaxy sang with the sound of a better future. And humanity's voice was one of many in that beautiful, chaotic, wonderful song.